Hi everyone, back again. Something has been coming to me lately that I think is important to us all. So therefore, I decided to jump in here and chat about it a bit. To begin with, I've noticed that here on Earth, it seems there's a rather peculiar tendency built into humans to have an immediate reaction to each situation and event, but especially one that's unfavorable or frustrating. Instead of pausing to assess the situation first, to determine what the correct reaction might be, rather than just going off on it. I mean, most of us have experienced this ourselves, when we've kind of lost it. And we've all at least witnessed it. As children, we probably first saw it on cartoons, like Popeye or Roadrunner or Daffy Duck. They just got creamed in those cartoons. And when kids watch adults or cartoon animals behaving in this way, they pick it up. They pick it up. It's as if they're being taught that when something goes wrong, you should curse or throw things and stamp your feet, as if this were going to, help or remedy the situation. So what's behind all this? Is this just a spontaneous backlash? Or do we somehow believe that this makes sense? And the louder we curse and bang our fist, the more apt we are to change or fix the situation? Or is this just instinctual? An innate, brutish, animalistic behavior deeply embedded into the physical human DNA? For survival, maybe. Who knows? I've never been able to explain it. Why, under the same conditions, one person reacts very benignly and another very violently. And this leads me to what I wanted to chat about today. Lately, I've been contemplating what I would like to accomplish in the time that remains in my life here on planet Earth. Kind of the deathbed scenario where you look back on your life to consider whether you have any regrets. What would I wish I had done or had not done? And what do I feel I was never able to accomplish or rise above? This has always been really important to me because I don't want to have any bad habits lingering through to the end that I might take home with me. I just want to clean it all up while I'm here on Earth so I won't have to come back through the cycle of reincarnation. There's a lot of emphasis right now on karmic cleansing, releasing all karma before death. And some may see this type of reaction as karma. All these potential limitations and weaknesses we all have. I see them more as addictions, habits we may be holding on to. Why does he act the way he acts? Why can't she seem to never let anything go? These are the karmic ties that bind us to the earth cycle of reincarnation. It's not so much that I did this to her and now we'll have to come back into another life and she will do that to me. The way I see it, it's what habits or behaviors own you. What are your needs? For example, do you act before you think? Or is it difficult to let things go and you play them over and over again in your mind? Oh, great. When we go over to dinner at Marcia's house, she will probably go on and on about her new BMW. And of course, if I say anything, she'll probably get mad at me and then gossip about me. And then I'll end up with no friends at all. We create these whole huge dramas in our minds that have never, and probably will never, happen. So, again, what about these reactions we seem to have about any and all unwanted events that come into our lives? When it came to this subject, my husband was one of my greatest teachers. He never reacted to a situation until he evaluated it. I never saw him throw a fit of anger. And he never spoke harshly to me in all the years we were married. Well, other than the time when I was going off on him about something, he just finally, calmly told me to be quiet and sit down, which I did. I mean, it was all my bad. He seemed, when it came to this sort of thing, to have the bigger picture and a knowledge that lashing out doesn't do any good. In fact, can just make things worse and even cause damage. I told him many times throughout our marriage that I wanted to learn how to do what he was able to do. Remain calm at all times, no matter what was going on around him. Amazing. One of my spiritual teachers referred to it as remaining calm in the midst of chaos. A very high state of enlightenment, for sure. So it's always been my goal to do it all in this one lifetime. Because as far as I know, I'm not coming back. So to overcome all of my weaknesses, habits, limitations, I want to get it the first time and not the second or third. I really don't want to be stuck or addicted to a behavior. Some people call this shadow work. But I don't know. For some reason, that sounds hard to me. I tend to just consider it as evolving, learning or realizing who I am, and if this indeed matches who I want to be. So what are these things I'm talking about? At the simplest level, they're things like food cravings, or sex, maybe coffee, chocolate, or alcohol or drugs. Or like the guy who is grumpy until he has his first cup of coffee. Is the grumpiness who he really is? Or is his habit so deeply ingrained that the grumpiness is just his need for a coffee fix? Our brains have their own chemistry, and our behaviors teach our brains how to react to that stimulus, like the craving for a coffee hit, for example, or that first drag on the cigarette. The person becomes addicted to the release of neurotransmitters like dopamine in the brain, and the habit is set up. And this can be something as benign as, like I said, the craving for chocolate, or as destructive as the frenzied heroin addict who may even kill to get his drug. Other habitual behaviors could be based on emotional addictions, possibly rooted in severe physical or mental trauma. And somewhat like PTSD, these may eventually manifest as anything from anxiety disorders to erratic manic behaviors or deep depression, where the trauma is lived over and over to a point where the brain chemistry is so affected that the person loses his ability to function normally. And this may even develop into a reaction like self-mutilation or cutting behavior. I mean, why on earth would someone cut themselves? Well, if someone has been abused to the point of becoming numb, maybe the physical pain somehow takes away the emotional pain. Or maybe it serves as a means of feeling alive again. Or perhaps as a form of exerting control. Or maybe self-punishment. Or self-empowerment. Mostly what I'm talking about here are the material things and behaviors, such as, I have to have a beautiful house. I have to have 2 cars. I have to have a beautiful partner, the right clothes and the right name brands, wealth and status. Or it could also be things like the adrenaline rush of a sport, like rock climbing, or hang gliding, bungee jumping, or the excitement of sitting on the couch or in the stadium watching your favorite team win their game. Now, let me make this really clear. There's nothing wrong with any of those things. In fact, these can be some of the most enjoyable activities in life and can inspire and thrill us. And in many cases, these are the main reasons we come here, to experience the stimulation of exploit and adventure that this planet offers. And this is wonderful. So what I'm rattling on about here is not to allow ourselves to get caught up in the need for these things. Food cravings, smoking, alcohol, sex, or just drinking too much Pepsi. It's fine to do it all in moderation, as long as we realize these desires are transient conditions, and we should not be dependent upon these for our happiness, because when we leave Earth, we leave these things behind. We should ask ourselves, can I be happy without this? If we cannot see ourselves being able to survive without the internet, for example, it owns us. So basically, most of these actions are not wrong, although some can be harmful if overdone. For example, a good steak can be delicious. But if that's all you ate, it could be pretty detrimental to your health. Just the habit of being fearful all the time can ultimately lead to bizarre behaviors, like the guy who believes that if he doesn't open and close the front door 17 times before he leaves the house, his family will die. Sometimes this is a brain disorder, but these are the sort of behaviors that come from one who is caught in a fearful place. Then, as I mentioned, there's the heroin user who would rather starve to death than to miss his fix. Then to go further, the abuser, the person who gets a thrill or some kind of gratification out of mistreating another, physically or mentally, even killing. And obviously, this is the most dreadful example of what we're discussing. So, why is this so important? Because this material habit, or any habit, has within it an addiction to a low frequency. And those patterns of behavior that give you the physical or psychological sensation that you crave becomes an attachment that exerts control over your life, your attention, your reasoning mind, your thinking, until you have no will to refuse. So, are any of these things really enough to pull us back into the loop of reincarnation? Hey, ask any near-deather, and they will probably tell you that during their NDE experience, when they were given a choice to stay or go back, the very nanosecond that they even had the tiniest thought about what they might miss in their life, human life, zip, they are back in their body again, sometimes in horrible pain. So I'm just hoping to point out that it might just be a very wise thing to consider that really any link to the material world is enough to bring you back to Earth again. And I'm simply suggesting that not only is this a perfect opportunity to advance our consciousness, our conscious awareness, but to be able to move up the frequencies, to enjoy life in some of the other magical realms or of infinite potential and possibility. Why not? So habits, for me, it's bananas. I know, pretty pathetic, huh? But I crave bananas and feel like I just have to have at least 2 bananas a day. So a couple of years ago, when I realized how strong this craving was, I forced myself to give them completely up for a short time until I felt that I could live without them. I did the same thing with chocolate. It seems like my thing has always been food. I don't drink or smoke, but I eat. Many years ago, it was peanut butter. Oh, peanut butter sandwiches. And I drank coffee for a while, but gave it up long ago when I found out I was pregnant. And I just never went back to it. We all have something we feel we just can't do without. As I mentioned before, today it seems to be electronics, the internet, smartphones, and tablets. Well, I've never had a smartphone because I don't want to be one of those who can't live without it. However, I do have a laptop and an iPad, and I'm pretty hooked onto both of those. I also love streaming British comedies and detective shows on Acorn TV. And even though I really look forward to watching a show in the evening, I'm always hoping to convince myself that this is only entertainment and not an addiction that I can't do without. Kind of silly. Anyway, the other thing that I have been a fanatic about for most of my life is exercise. After a year of being disabled when I was a young woman and not able to walk, when I healed, I just started exercising like a fiend. And I immediately became a long-distance runner, then a ballet dancer, then an avid hiker, and now a daily walker. You know, it's all the same craving. There have been so many times when I've had a real anxiety attack, when I haven't been able to get outside for a walk. And I feel like I'm crawling up the walls. Well, I try to reassure myself that at least none of these habits in general are harmful. My husband used to joke and say that I had all the good habits and he had all the vices. Not true, by the way. Anyway, each one of these things I've mentioned, and others that I haven't mentioned, I have tried to admit to myself and face head on, and at least release the fanaticism, the habit, and then be able to enjoy it only as a pleasure rather than a habitual need. We all have a real chance here, while in this human life, to tie up all the loose ends and be able to take pleasure in the fact that if we can accomplish this while we're here, we are unencumbered and free to play the game without restriction. And this way, when we leave this life, we aren't dragging any material baggage along with us and can take this gift of freedom back home to our higher self, to the realm of the divine, Source itself. Well, good or bad, that's my rant for the day. See you soon, and hey, thanks for listening. Bye-bye.